them all up now. So 24 hours, the next one's supposed to come up every time because you're supposed to leave it on Twitch for 24 hours. So if you want to watch replays, go there because YouTube's a much better player than Twitch's player is, right? So if you wanted to see something, it's on the full stream channel or whatever. That is literally, I don't expect anybody to watch it. Nothing's monetized. Couldn't care less if you view it, right? That's just, this moment was funny and I wanted to go see it. That's a perfect place for it. Twitch has burned down channels with DCMA. Right. That is another reason. So I've stopped playing copyrighted music entirely, Hero. I used to play copyrighted music at the start of every one of my streams. But I guess with this one, it was 50 Cent, which luckily I don't really listen to 50 Cent at all. So I was able to avoid getting hit by the big burn. But I stopped. So no more copyrighted music on stream. We're not doing any more music requests, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, stuff like this. Listen, that's gonna be fine. I don't think that guy's gonna come out. But yeah, we're not gonna be doing anything like that anymore. So, which kind of makes me sad. Because I love music. I love sharing music. But it can't be a thing. Did I get the only music request? You did, Meow. You did. I'm thinking about maybe doing some classical music. I'm not terribly versed in classical music, but I hate royalty free stuff. I think there's a very clear distinction when you're listening to royalty free music that it was made to be royalty free. There's nothing impactful about it. So I'm thinking about like doing classical music for background music because I like classical music. Classical music is going to DCM it. So I'm considering that, but I need to find songs that I like because I'm super critical. So, all right, let's get into this game one. I screwed up. So you're not supposed to make your own template if ones exist. So I need to just kind of mess with the template a little bit to get what I want to do. Because basically I need to like remove like a lot of the games and we're just gonna focus on the ones. But all right, there's a presentation mode. I thought presentation mode. Here we go. Nice. All right. Artists can play their work is in the top of the charts in a few months. Yeah. All right. We'll get this on screen. Here we go. All right. So again, we're going to ignore a lot of the titles that we haven't played because every Resident Evil title is on here. So I'm just going to really quick just organize based on the ones we have played. And then we're going to leave. I'm just not going to grade the ones we haven't. So give me just a minute here. Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2, 0. Which one is... Okay, there's 6. Okay, 5, 6, 7. Code Veronica goes here. 3. No. Code Veronica goes there. Where's 4? Let's see. That's 3 Nemesis. We didn't play the originals on stream. Resistance. I did try Resistance, but I don't have an opinion on it. I don't think it's a good idea. How about that? Is that a good enough opinion for Resistance? I don't think Resistance is a good idea. Okay, so I think that's it. So so we got 0, 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? We haven't played any of the other ones behind here. I can't delete them or anything, so they're just gonna live there. Okay. All right. Let's talk about each one of these quick. So Resident Evil 0. So Resident Evil 0 obviously had a fucking miserable hold on. I'm changing to just chatting because that's what we're doing. Resident Evil 0 had a fucking miserable inventory system. And the gameplay was the traditional survival horror, but the inventory system made it so unbearable. So I'm gonna put this like in. I'm honestly like it's D tier for me. Like I would not go back to that game. That game was torturous. Resident Evil 1. Obviously the HD remake. We didn't. That's all we played. Resident Evil 1. It's kind of where it all started. The HD remake didn't fuck with it, which I think was really important. Compared to, some of the other ones where they did a lot of changes. So, I mean, I think Resident Evil, I think it's kind of the original. It's the big boy. Now, if I were to tier it, so I'm going to put it into A tier. So I really liked Resident Evil 1. But it doesn't go above my other ones, I guess, is how it's definitively below for me. I'm not rushing back to play it. The writing's still terrible. I mean, it's a product of its time in almost all aspects. So that's where it's going to sit. Yeah, we know which one is the top. Well, we're figuring this out. All right, Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 remake is absolutely fantastic. They captured everything that was good about Resident Evil 2 and modernized it. It's the perfect modernization of not that top. It's the perfect modernization of the previous title, which was a really good survival horror title. No question. Really enjoyed it. And it kind of came out at a good time. It was the first remake, the first real remake, right? I'm kind of surprised they skipped 1 on the remake train because I think 1 would be a really cool remake. But it is what it is. 2 is a good place to start, certainly. And yeah, they preserved the gameplay. They preserved the setting. They modernized it. Mr. X was just a fantastic gimmick. How does Mr. X fit in there? Yeah. So Mr. X was probably one of the best gimmicks out of all of these games. Hands down. Mr. X was great. He's for the character tier. Right. Okay, Resident Evil 3. I hate Resident Evil 3. The Resident Evil 3 remake. And a lot of people like this is kind of divisive for some people because they're like, "Oh, I really liked it." Playing them all in a row, right? I think there's two kind of people. There's 2 kinds of people. $6 for 4-hour game, heck off. Right. But I think there's 2 kinds of people when you talk about the Resident Evil titles. It's the people who like 4 and beyond and the people who don't. And at least 4, 5, and 6, right? And there's people who don't. And I think if you were introduced to Resident Evil with Resident Evil 4 and you like that action game style of gameplay, you're going to like Resident Evil 3 for that reason. Alexa, heater off. Heater. It's hot in here. I was like, why am I heating up so much? And there's those of us who never even touched Resident Evil. How's it going, Metzger? There's those of us who never even touched it. Well, here's a good tier list in case you ever want to dabble into it. But so if you like those action games, great. It goes higher on your list. I don't like how Resident Evil's presented in those games. And then 3, it was a different game. I'm not going to read that, sorry. 3 was a completely different game than its original. So its original was this bizarre amalgamation of, like this action game, but then they almost like bamboozled you because they started it and it was kind of like it seemed like, oh, this is going to be a survival horror game, but it wasn't. The opening was really cool, but it's just another set piece. It's just another explosion set piece that was very disappointing. So I was very disappointed in Resident Evil 3. I wouldn't pay for it again, no question. So that's that. Code Veronica boils down what I really enjoyed about Resident Evil. It creates a silly story. It's very B-movie, more so than a lot of the other ones. It's very B-movie plot, B-movie stylings. It's almost like the most neutral Resident Evil for the survival horror side. So I think it's probably going to be the only one that actually ends up in B tier for me. It's a game. It's got all the survival horror, tropes. It's kind of ridiculous. It wasn't great, right? It wasn't like super good, but it just wasn't super bad either. B movie, B tier makes sense. Absolutely. I mean, Resident Evil is famous for being a B movie, being B movie-esque. And I think if you treat it like that, it's great. Don't treat the plot too seriously, but they made some weird writing choices. Turning Wesker into a supervillain was a really weird writing choice. Just how do you compare this to B movie? B movie's S tier, clearly. No, but like making Wesker a supervillain was a weird writing choice. The Alexia and what was it? Alexia and Al something. Alfred. It's Alfred. Alfred and Alexia. Those are weird characters. I don't know. It called a lot. There was some weird vibes in a lot of it. And the gameplay itself was fine. It was the traditional survival horror. It was kind of shocking how much it hadn't evolved from the original 3. I recall Code Veronica came out in the Dreamcast first, and I think that was the last one with traditional gameplay, the old style gameplay, and it was definitely stale by that point. Some of the stuff they did was good, but the game was really stale. And the gameplay was really stale. Okay, Resident Evil 4. C tier. So Resident Evil 4 was the game that everybody... That was their Resident Evil, right? And a lot of people throw Resident Evil 4 as their number one. It's their S tier. It's their top tier game. Resident Evil 4 marked a shift for the franchise that is, I would consider, a very negative shift that influenced a ton of the franchise's games going forward because people seem to like it so much. When I revisited it, a lot of the systems that it built on were very clear, very concise, and very obvious. It became an arena shooter. It was no longer a survival horror game. So this is everybody's S tier. If they like the arena shooter, the action movie style, this is it. This is the game. But even when I talked to Billy one time, and Billy kind of said, well, Resident Evil's always done something different. It's not true. It really isn't. It's not. I do not find that accurate in the slightest. That was them trying something different, right? And people found it successful. I didn't. The first original 5 games, because I think Resident Evil 0 came up before 4. So which of these is Symphony of the Night tier? That would be S tier for sure. I have commentary on Symphony of the Night though as well. Even then, we could talk about that in a second. But so like that becomes a lot of people's number one game because they look at it with this nostalgic lens. But I actually consider this the stumbling that resulted in 2 subpar games. The game itself is fine. I don't think it's anything special. I think a lot of people do. I don't. I think it's a really, really basic arena shooter. It influenced a lot of games afterwards that came out. You gotta bring it here, Spiff. It influenced a lot of games afterwards that came out. And those games were, some were good, some were bad, right? The over-the-shoulder style was really revolutionary. Great. I don't think from a gameplay standpoint, what games survived during that style? You know what I mean? Where you look back and it's a modern classic, a Gears of War. Like, that's it. Like, I can't think of any other over-the-shoulder third-person style game that did any good after Resident Evil 4, other than the other Resident Evil titles. So that's why I put 4 down in the C tier. I think 4 is where they got off the rails. They removed survival horror from it. It wasn't scary. It was more gross. It was more actiony. And they even kind of bamboozle you because it starts out kind of scary and kind of ominous. And then the second half of the game is, here's a bunch of weapons. Here's a bunch of enemies. Shoot them. Resident Evil 5. Above Resident Evil 4, but not much. Resident Evil 5, the only reason I put it above Resident Evil 4 is because I think it's a victim of Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 5 could be a very different game if Resident Evil 4 wasn't successful, but it wasn't. So Resident Evil 5 had a really cool co-op, and the story was kind of nonsense. The game was a little racist. But the action gameplay, if we just take that, again, if I'm going to take it at the base value of, what 4 established, it was refined. They dropped all pretense of horror. It's just shoot things, go through, shoot things. It's an action game. It's an action game. And the co-op is like mildly embraced. I mean, it's embraced. You can play through the whole thing. It's really embraced pretty well. But you don't need to do it. It's okay as a single player game. Managing 2 characters is a lot more palatable than it is in Resident Evil 0 in terms of health and ammo. I really rarely struggled in Resident Evil 5, and I struggled a ton in Resident Evil 0 managing that kind of shit. So I think Resident Evil 5 is a victim of Resident Evil 4's nonsense that it established. But overall is a better arena shooter and a better action game than Resident Evil 4. Holy shit, Resident Evil 6. Oh, God. Resident Evil 6 was the biggest pain in the ass in the Resident Evil anything. Mythos, gameplay. Resident Evil Y, that's a good way of putting it. It was bad. It was a struggle to get through. There were 3 different stories that all kind of intertwined. It was extremely... I've never seen a game so built on the concept of co-op. Would it have been fun if you were suffering with another person? Maybe. I find it shocking that every mission and every single thing they did was co-op in mind. It got so far from the original point of Resident Evil. Resident Evil was you're walking around in a mansion. You're walking around in a mansion. It's spooky. You don't know what's around the next corner. The fixed camera angles are scary. Holy shit. What's going to happen next? I'm low on resources. Meanwhile, Resident Evil 6 just here's all the resources. Here's all the actions. Here's all the explosions. Here's all the crazy monsters. You like B movies? Here you go. This is a high budget B movie. We're going to have ridiculous plots. We're going to have all these people dying. We're just going to have holy shit. Yes, Michael Bay edition. Yes. And here are Deborah's assets. Yes, we're just gonna have. They just pack all this nonsense, and they're like, it's a huge game. You can co-op. You can play any mission with your friends. All your friends are gonna be playing it, so you're gonna be able to jump in. You're gonna be able to jump in on your friends' playthrough anytime. You know what I mean? Jump in and play a mission with them you already played, and you're gonna earn points and you upgrade your characters. You can get more skills. Infinite rocket launcher. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Nobody. Exactly. Nobody. Very disappointing. That is a low. I'm talking the lowest. I mean, let's just listen. Seriously. I didn't play Resident Evil Survivor on stream. I have played about 5 minutes of it. Listen. Yes. At least it was survival horror. It was bad. But it wasn't Resident Evil 6 bad. Resident Evil 6 is pretty bad. It should get its own tier. It should get its own poopy tier. But we're just going to put it in F because we're here. Operation Raccoon City win. Never. But yeah, so Resident Evil 6, I don't recommend it. Don't play it. Don't ignore its existence. It's just not good. It's 3 different games. It's crazy. It's absolute nonsense. It's so over the top. Then we have Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 takes everything I like about Resident Evil and it just embraces it. From the horror aspect of the first person, from the enemies being kind of different. Yeah, it's not zombies. Yeah, Resident Evil 7, we fucked up and we're sorry. I mean, it really was. We're, you know, yeah, it isn't zombies, but that's okay. We've kind of moved beyond it. Really scary villains, really scary moments. The gore was scary. So you had all this mold, which kind of replaced the gore. So all this mold was able to overshadow, like, you know, piles of bodies and shit like that, right? This is mold creatures that were creepy in their own right. And then so when you did have gore, it was over the top and crazy and like, oh my God, like you know, it's nuts. You know, fighting the first boss with the chainsaw, and just like, and doing all that sort of stuff. It really felt like what Resident Evil wanted to be from the start, the survival horror experience, where you felt like you were low on resources. I was save scumming at one point. The enemies are very creepy. They drop out of nowhere. All of a sudden you turn around and I saw some wheels and I saw some spokes, but overall, like the experience, like if you asked me, and I think I said this before, if you asked me, go back in a year, which one do you want to play? It's Resident Evil 7. Hands down. No other game has. I'd love to play it in VR now that I know what's happening, because I think that would be an interesting experience on the PS4. But that game that was the quintessential Resident Evil experience. If you come back to what they were trying to do in Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, that's the survival horror. They took the Survivor formula, putting in first person, did very basic melee combat, added that, you know, gave you not a whole lot of resources, made the enemies bullet resistant on normal. It was a chore to get through, and you could, you know, once you understood it, you could get through it, and it was pretty easy. But yeah, it was just so good. It was so good. The DLC, meh. And the end of the story, now Resident Evil's always been bad at ending their stories, so I can't hold it against Resident Evil 7 because the second half was kind of weird. The salt mine and the boat was weird, but so was Resident Evil 2's with the lab and what you deal with there. So is Resident Evil's with the lab and the boss fights. Code Veronica's is really weird, especially the second half of the game. 5 and 4 both have really weird. So I mean, you just go back. Like a lot of people like trying to, like, as they play a game, they try to hold all those opinions. Like, oh, you know, well, the end was weird, but the end's always been weird. So if you're just grading against other Resident Evil games, you can't really hold it against it. Oh, I hear you, Hero. Okay, I'll take a look. Maybe I'll pick up the demo at some point, try it out. Am I looking forward to 8? I haven't seen any gameplay of it. Somebody told me, I don't remember who told me, but somebody told me it was rumored to be in the first person style that they did with 7. If they do that, sure. If it's that same sort of ominous feeling. If they do what they did with RE3, no, I don't know. No. But if it's the same feel as 7 and what they did with that atmosphere and how they did it, absolutely. I'm excited. For sure. Okay, so that's my spiel. So that's how I see it. That's in terms of enjoyment. That's where I land. The top 2 I would play again in a year. The rest of them, you know. more towards 7 and Supernatural-ish. And Supernatural's fine too. I like the hallucination stuff. You know, I like that it's grounded in reality, but with a little bit of a bent like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If it turns out to be anything like 7, I'll be psyched. Okay, that's that tier list. So we're good there. Now I wonder how many are on this next list. We're gonna have some. I think this list might be an issue. We're gonna see. We're gonna see if we're gonna do this one, because if there are, I mean, there's probably a ton of characters we've never seen. I don't still see why you called Evelyn Grandma. Well, she was Grandma before, hero. Resident Evil characters. I wonder if it's just gonna have the main characters. It's gonna have literally everybody. That'd be a lot. Let's see. Oh, okay. It's doable. That's ageist. Well, she was appearing as a grandma. Is this Claire? The fuck is that? Is that Claire? Sorry, hold on. Let me put it on screen, and then you can all go with me and go, is that Claire? What? Who is this? Who is this? This is 7. These are the movies. There's Leon. Sheva. That must be Claire. What the fuck? Okay, this has got a lot of major characters on it, so I'll take it. I'll be able to do most of it. Is this Hunk? Where is Movie Carlos? No, I'm not going to rate the movie characters either. Movie Carlos. They have regular Carlos. Who's this? Oh, it's Brad. Oh, Jesus Christ. Is this Wesker twice? I don't. Okay. Some weird decisions. All right. Who is this? Is that Rebecca? Who's this? There's some I would just literally don't. Is that Jill? Wait a minute. Oh, it is. That's Jill. Oh, that's weird. Oh, I guess this is in alphabetical order. Yeah, I guess this is in alphabetical order. Because that's... Well, no, it's not. I guess they tacked the 7 characters onto the end. This is... All right. Ashley F- tier. Okay, let's start. Ada. She's a D tier. Ada Wong is... I'm going to try to fly through this for the record. Ada Wong is a mystery character that is just intentionally held into this obtuseness for no good reason. Absolutely no good reason. No, thank you. Who is this? Who is this guy? Anybody? I don't know. Where's Chris's team for Resident Evil 7? Who cut it out? Oh, it was Lucas. Yeah. I don't know who this is. I don't remember. I'm gonna put him at the bottom for right now. Okay, Claire. He looks mad. Give him a D. I'm just gonna put him at the bottom. We're only doing characters, remember. Claire. C for Claire. Claire is like really fucking neutral to me. No. I'm not giving Claire enough credit. I'm not. Claire. Okay. Claire's been in 2 games, right? The first game, she was coming to town to save her brother or find her brother, and couldn't find him. Yep, A, B, C, D, F. Yes, that's how it's supposed to go. There's no E. Couldn't find him, right? Then Claire went around to a bunch of Umbrella facilities and killed tons of people in her search for Chris. She, I don't know how many facilities she took, but holy shit, she was a badass. Now, you know what? I'm going to downgrade her a little bit. And then she took up crocheting. But I'm going to downgrade her a little bit because for some reason they wrote her and they were like, oh, Chris, you saved me. I don't understand that because she was a badass for most of the game. But then they did the, oh, Chris, you saved me bit. Oh, women are not powerful. Fuck you, Resident Evil writers. But so because they wrote her that way, I got to downgrade her a little bit. But she was would they just let her be her? Badass. Hunk. Now, is this Hunk? Who is this? It can't be Hunk. There's 2 Leons. For the record. Right? No, yeah, there's 2 Leons. Look, 2 Leons. I don't understand. It's the same character. I don't care what. Okay, let's just keep going. Okay, I'm assuming this is Hunk. Hunk is S tier. Hunk is just, they keep putting him into these situations and he keeps coming out of it. He's mercenary. He's mercenary extreme. Okay, Hunk S tier, no question. Ashley F tier. Ashley's terrible. Ashley just wants to bone Leon and whine. There's no 6 Leon though. That's what I'm saying. Is like, so there's 4 Leon, and I think this is 6. No, this is 4 Leon. What is this? No, this is 4 Leon, and this is 6 Leon. But there's no 2 Leon, so I can only grade 1 Leon because I don't have all 3 of them. So, you know what I mean? Does it make sense? Barry. Where's Barry go? That's a good question. Let's think about Barry. So Barry played some roles in Revelations 2 that I don't know about. Barry in the RE3 game that I enjoy, Barry piloted a helicopter. He saved Jill in RE3. There's also an Operation Raccoon City. Right. I'm just skipping over the ones I don't know. There's nothing I can do about that. Is Steve on here? I didn't even see Steve. I don't think Steve's here. Do you see Steve? I don't see Steve. Barry also talked to himself. That was him. Yes, he talked to himself. So he betrayed the main characters, which kind of maybe downgrades him a bit. There's no Steve on this. I do not see a Steve. Do you see a Steve? I don't see a Steve. There's no Steve. Disappointing. We'll talk about where he put Steve at the end. Barry, like, he betrayed the main characters. He's a complex character. He's a complex guy. He's got kids. I like Barry. I haven't played games where he's a main dude. I mean, he's a solid B. I think Barry, B for Barry. He's a complex character. He redeems himself. He had good reasons for working with Wesker, right? They were threatening his family. I mean, what choices does he really have? So, a B. Lord Sadler, D. Under Ada. What even was he? Like, yeah, his monster design was cool, but it's just like he showed up twice and then he was a boss and then he died. Who gives a shit? I don't. He was kind of set up to be something more major than that, but he wasn't. Is this Steve? Is this supposed to be Steve? Is there supposed to be a survivor character? I don't know. I just don't know. Is this Sherry? That must be Sherry. No, that's Sherry. Well, who the fuck is that? That's got to be a survivor character or something. I don't know that guy. Okay, Boobs McGee. I mean, she was a pretty useless character. She had giant tits. I mean, that's the quintessential neutral. Is it not? Is it not? I think she's B for boobs. No. I think she's C. She would be B for boobs if she had more than like 10 lines, but she didn't. She's the quintessential neutral. She's there. She's there for a reason. It's not a good reason. Okay? But she's there for a reason. Fair? Fair. Helena. Helena. I don't think Helena's a bad character. I don't think she's poorly designed. She's Helena brought us D-Cup Deborah. Yeah. Deborah's not on this list either, obviously. I like Helena. I think I think for introducing a character in Resident Evil 6, she was complex. Complex enough. I think. I don't know who this is. Sorry. She's complex enough. She was cool and saved Leon sometimes. Yeah. I mean, I'd put her. I mean, I'm going to put her right up there with Claire. I think she had badass moments. I think she portrayed powerful woman, which I think is good. I think she did that very well for the whole, and because of that, she goes above Claire. Because I think she just, for the character they wrote, I think what I liked about it was that it wasn't like, oh, it's a girl, right? It's a person. And I think she was written pretty well into that role. I don't think there was it didn't feel like there was any sexual tension with Leon, which, again, if we talk about, you want to talk about male writing tropes, right? Like that's a classic one. If you're only talking about a guy, or it's because of a guy or something like that, which, from the plot standpoint, yes, because it was all about Simmons. But that being said, I felt like she exuded power. She was a good character. I don't know who this is. Hunnigan. She runs things. She does. She feels like she had a good role in Resident Evil 6, but right, she doesn't really help. Like, it just feels like she just feeds pointless information to the main characters. I don't like Hunnigan. I'm gonna put her above Boobs McGee. She's still a good person. And I think she doesn't really help. I'm gonna put her below Ada. I changed my mind. She does not contribute at all. She's like, your backup's coming. You need to do this. You need to do that. But largely, like, she does nothing. Like, if she like Simmons was right there, right? If she like slapped the phone out of his hand or something, but she hasn't really had her moment yet. Maybe she'll have her moment in the future. Oh, I don't even remember this fucking guy's name. F. Above Ashley. Who is he? I don't even remember his name. So it's this Resident Evil 4 character. I know that. Who is he? He gets introduced late in the story. He's got some past with Leon that never gets fleshed out. And then he dies. He's just like evil Russian generic. That they tried to make him significant, and that's bad. F. Terrible. Terrible character. Jake. Oh, Jake. You're written poorly. You are... Anyone named Jake is an F? I mean, I understand you may have your biases against Jakes. I think Jake is D tier. Jake's written really poorly. I still think Ada's the top of the D tier because she's so prominent. But Jake's written really under Hunnigan, over Sadler. Sadler's F tier. We're gonna change this. He's terrible. Jake's written really poorly. He's just like the most generic soldier of fortune. Oh, Wesker's son. Oh, he's so badass. Who gives a shit? Who really gives a shit? I don't give a shit. No. Jill Valentine. Jill Valentine is S. I like Jill. I like Jill's character. I like Jill's character arcs. I don't think she's ever been... I think she survived the mansion. She beats up Nemesis. And rather if I don't like Resident Evil 3 as a game, right? She kicked Nemesis's ass. She gets possessed and gets out of it in 5. And I think just in general, like her character arc and what she does and what she represents is good. We had to rip the bit of the chest bit out of Jill. Yeah, it's in there somewhere, but that's a classic. That was actually a bit frustrating. But I mean, or you can kill her and then fail, which you did at first. That's funny. I think she is like, she represents a lot about Resident Evil, what made it good. She's also really only starred in games that, I mean, other than the remake, if we ignore the remake and just think about original Resident Survival, right? She's been this survival presence the whole time. And I think that's pretty good. So big thumbs up on Jill. I think she's probably the best character in the franchise, in my opinion. Well, the best protagonist. Carlos is he's not a good character. He's a weird, I understand you might like Carlos, but he's a weird insert. He's like the MacGuffin, and then he just dies like a bitch. And we're supposed to feel for him. Like, Leon's like, Carlos, no! Above Hunnigan. You like movie Carlos. I never saw the movies. Mr. X, hands down, the new Mr. X is the best villain. And probably the best character design. Which is, he's just Tyrant, right? Well, hold on. Give me a second. Actually, Mr. X is going to go down here. And actually, Jill is going to go down here too. And Jill's going to go right there. And Hunk will stay there. Yes. Not double S, Mr. X. Because he's in one game. He's really cool in that game, which is why he deserves to be top of the tier. But there isn't really anything to him. It's not like he had to do any writing. He's got no like tragic backstory, right? He's just an evil monster. But he's cool. You know what? Nah. He goes in S tier. Changed my mind. Okay, who is this? I don't know who this is. She looks like a relatively new character. I don't know who that is, though. What if they did a backstory again, Mr. X? I'd probably move him up to S tier, yeah. I mean, he's in S tier now. I changed my mind. But I think that would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know who this is. Huh. Nemesis, also S tier. Especially original Nemesis. Original, and actually, honestly, boom. I actually put him above. Who was he before the experiments, right? So I actually put original Nemesis above. So if we're talking, this is original Nemesis, which that's the picture. Nemesis, remake Nemesis featuring Teeth. Nemesis, his concept was like the first of its kind. And the chase down of the giant monster, I don't think other games have really done that until Resident Evil 2's remake. Like, where you have this entity that's always going after you, where you can be backtracking and all of a sudden, fucking surprise, it's a big thing that you don't want to tangle with, aiming a rocket launcher at you. You're fucked. Good game. That is... He's so high concept and great execution. He walks through doors. He took away everything that was safe about the Resident Evil titles. And he did it really early. I mean, I can't believe they didn't revisit that concept until they did Resident Evil 2. It was like... And I think I was watching and I was reading a post and there's a little bit of commentary on this, that feedback sucks Because if developers take your feedback seriously, so if we talk in the case of Mr. X, right? A lot of people, when they first got the game, talked about how awful Mr. X was. Mr. X is chasing me everywhere. He's really frustrating. But Mr. X created an element of randomness that you couldn't get away from. And that's what people didn't like. But I think at the end of the day, when you look back at the experience, they loved it. They love that element, that randomness. Can we talk about the random rocket launcher? We can, because that's what they did before too. Sometimes he'd have a rocket launcher, sometimes he wouldn't. It was just completely fucking random with Nemesis in the original. And you just get fucked. I mean, you just get fucked. And it did not care how long it was going to be. You know what I mean? How long you haven't been since you saved. Nemesis just showed up. So, but think about when the original Resident Evil 3 came out, like that was the high concept of it, right? It was a Resident Evil game and we have this giant thing and people didn't like it because they didn't want to die like that. But when you look back on it, you look back on the concept, you look back on the gameplay, that's the Resident Evil. When I was growing up, I beat it and I remember it the most. And so what I'm talking about now in the modern, when we do 2 versus 3, right? The concern is that developers are taking what people said about 2, the initial knee-jerk reaction of, oh my God, I hate Mr. X, he's so annoying, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, they don't want this. So we're going to give him a nemesis that's just like a super-powered crazy thing. And he's not going to follow you around and it's going to be an action game and blah, blah, blah. That sucked. And it sucked. So developers, gamers are not always right. That's pretty much the end of that, right? Gamers are not always right. Their initial reactions are not always right. Fuck that. But yes, so the original Nemesis, definitely, I don't foresee anybody going above him on the list because his concept was revolutionary and it didn't get imitated for the longest time. I can't think of any games like that. Lord Sadler. Better than Carlos. That's all. More impactful than Carlos. Not Lord Sadler. What's his name? I don't even remember his name. More impactful than Carlos. That's how I feel. Tyrant. These are the same character for the record. Mr. X Tyrant. Same. Tyrant is not good. Her name is not her name. I was talking about him. Napoleon. Tyrant is it's a boss. It's a not well-known boss. You didn't have to encounter Tyrant when you were playing. Can't remember her name either. No, me either. But you didn't have to, Tyrant was basically the end boss of, he technically wasn't the end boss of 0, right? But he's the end boss of 1. And really didn't ever come back after that. And he was just a MacGuffin. He was just a replacement for Wesker to not be your end boss. That's all there really is to it. So instead of making Wesker the end boss, they made this giant bioweapon the end boss. When they designed it, it was early, right? They didn't know what they were doing. They just thought they were creating this creepy horror movie thing. RE7 Granny asked, "Oh, don't worry, we're getting there. We're getting there, Hummingbird. Don't worry. How you doing tonight?" Yeah, just not good. Excella, yes, thank you, Vance. Above Excella, because I think Excella is. I think both of them, I feel like my C tier is like they served a purpose, right? Excella served the purpose of boobs in Resident Evil 5, and the Tyrant serves the purpose of boss in 2 Resident Evil titles. All right, Jacob. Who? Teen service, exactly. Just teens. I never looked at him, not even once. Jacob. Who? He drove the dang boat. I know what he did. Why? Why does he even exist? He was the weirdest. Like he was the weirdest character introduction of all those characters. Like why does he exist? If he had a more interesting arc, if he like betrayed them, that would have been interesting. I would have been like, oh, Jacob, man, he B tier. He's just like we need somebody for Sheva to associate to. Yeah, your partner could have done it. Loyal dude gets F tiered. Yeah, what can I say? He had no arc. He was just introduced so Sheva had somebody to relate to. Why did she need that? I don't get it. Let's use this picture of Wesky. Because that was Wesky. MGTOW, for fuck's sake. That he is Wesker does represent that. As a character, as a written character, Wesker is your antagonist for essentially the first 1, 2, 3. Well, let's see. 1, 2, Code Veronica, and then 5, right? 1, 2, Code Veronica, 5. He wasn't the antagonist in 4. So 4 games. He was your primary antagonist, or 0, 1. I'm sorry, it was 0, 1. I was counting. 0, 1, Code Veronica, 5. He was written so strangely. He had probably the most bizarre character arc out of all of them. He's a great villain. I think it's a good idea to make the badass dude a villain, because it's very expected. It's very B movie. I think he's middling. I think he's they bring him to weird places, but I mean in general he just gets bigger every time he's a villain. I don't think there's not any instances where it's like his influence on the situation shrinks, right? He just gets more and more massive until he's this force that has to be reckoned with in 5, right? You have to do him in. But so his superpowers are stupid. Like, I think that's all stupid as hell. But I mean, I think there could be worse antagonists. Okay. Rebecca Chambers. Rebecca. Oh, you know who else isn't? No, Billy. Where's Billy? The fuck? Is this Billy? Is this supposed to be Billy? That's not what Billy looks like, is it? I'm gonna use this dude. I think this dude's from Survivor, right? I'm gonna use him as a Billy stand-in. Or this will be our Billy stand-in. This dude. Billy. That's going to be Billy. So let's talk about Rebecca first. Because Billy, I mean, and same with Steve. This will be Steve. Like, those are critical characters that had enough presence. Right? Rebecca. I mean, Rebecca's been in 2 games. 0, she starred. 1, she had a supporting role for Chris. I mean, she just kind of got in, got out. I don't feel like there's anything. I mean, she was kind of compassionate. I'm gonna put her above Ada. Nah, I'll put her below Excella. No, I'll put her above Excella, but below Tyrant. That's where I put her. Same with Billy. Billy goes there too. Billy's better than Rebecca though. No, he's not. He's worse. He's worse than Excella. Okay, we're done talking about that. Steve. Holy shit. Okay, Steve. Come on. Fucking Steve. God damn it. Steve was so horny, he got people killed. He died because he was too horny. That's the only reason Steve died. That's it. So if we call that Steve, Steve died because he was horny. Steve is a hero. No. Steve saved Claire once and then just really wanted that ass for the rest of the movie. Steve thought Vance. Steve thought he was owed something after he was a hero. Come on, look at that. He did. You know he did. Steve is a nice guy. That's what Steve is. Steve's a nice guy. Because Claire was not interested. She saw Steve as a little brother, and Steve's like, I saved your life, man. Now I'm interested in your butt. Steve is a nice guy. Okay, Brad. Okay, friend zoned. Yes, Brad. So this is Resident Evil 3, Brad, right? So originally, if you were to ask me previously, before playing the remake, where does Brad go? Brad goes in the bottom tier. Brad ran away in a helicopter out of fear, and then just died after running away from Jill in the originally Resident Evil 3. Fuck him. Okay. I can't put him in the bottom tier because he redeemed himself in the remake, right? So he ran away in the first one because he was scared. God damn it, Brad. Right? But then he saves Jill. So full circle, he almost got Jill killed, but he kind of evens himself out. So I'm gonna put Brad. Brad's at the bottom of D tier, and that's only to have him avoid F tier. Because I think by saving Jill in the remake, he really redeemed himself. I think he really, really did. Leon S. Kennedy. Where does Leon go? That's a good question. I like Leon. I like Leon as a character. I think Leon is a good character. I think he was good as a rookie cop in 2, just kind of confused. And I think he was pretty good in 4. He was a little snarkier. He kind of grew up. In 6, he was battle hardened at that point. He had a good arc. He's a bit sexist in 6. I don't like that. So fuck that. I was pretty pissed the last thing he said in 6. It's kind of, I mean, it's I think it's a reasonable thing to be annoyed. He wouldn't have friend zoned Steve. Yeah, Leon want to fuck the shit out of Steve. I'm gonna put Leon at the top of B tier. Yeah, I think that's where he belongs. I think that's where he belongs. I think that's your canon. All right. I think that's where he belongs. I still liked Helena more. I like Claire more than Leon. But I think Leon has an okay, character arc. Chris Redfield. So much like Jill, I do put Chris in an upper tier. I think Chris is really well written. I think Pierce isn't on here either. For fuck's sake. Pierce is B tier, or no, he's C tier. He's true neutral, just so you know. I think Chris has a what about when he runs out of synthol? Yeah, it's a good question when he's off the juice what he's like, but I think for being on the juice, I think he's S tier. He's really consistent across all Resident Evils. He's annoyed. He's kind of this battle-hardened cop. He just kind of shows up, does his job as a soldier, and yeah, I think he has his demons. I mean, he's fighting with Wesker left and right. His family's involved in the case of Claire, So it's like his family's involved in all this shit. And he still manages to do the right thing almost every time. Yeah, I think he's a good character. I like Jill. I like Jill more personally, but I don't. It's close. Another villain from Resident Evil 5. Fucking Resident Evil 5's version of Tony Montana. Yeah, no. A little better than this guy, a little worse than this guy. Who cares? Like, they keep trying to with a lot of their talk. I felt like they kept trying to, like, they have a past, but you never see it. So, I mean, it's fine if you want to be like, oh, these characters. I don't know that about Napoleon #2. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, oh, these characters have a past. But because you don't see it, it's like, why even put them in? Or why even put any of that sort of feeling in where you're like, oh, I'm chasing after you. I'm going to finally get you, you doofus. This is Claire. I'm going to put Claire. That's a better picture of Claire. So yeah, Lord Sadler, better than Napoleon, only slightly. I don't really like the Resident Evil 4 villains at all. I think they're not sufficiently fleshed out. How's it going, Calendar? Garbage. Sherry Birkin. Sherry Birkin is an interesting character. I really like Sherry. I think Sherry is A tier. I think Sherry is below Claire and Helena. However, I think Sherry's A tier. Sherry is a really good arc. She starts out as a little girl. She's infected with a virus. She's badass still. And I mean, like, especially in the remake of 2, I think she was a pretty strong character. Like when she's running from irons, and just like, you know, and not panicking and kind of moving around. I think she's good. You know, she went through a lot, and then she's serving her country. She's against all this virus stuff, and both her parents died, and she's still, you know, look at her. She's just really still a go-getter. So I like Sherry. Sheva. Yeah, underutilized character. I really like Sheva. She needs to be in another game. Because I think she's great. I think she's a good representation. I think I'd put her at the top of A tier. Like, I think she's really good representation. She just needs to be. How do I give up my sub? You don't play Sheva where she deserves to be. What, you think Sheva deserves to be all the way at the top of S? She's a really good character. She needs to be in more games. A tier is okay. Yeah, she's a good character. I think she's well written, and I think she's powerful. And badass, but she just needs to be in more. They need to bring her back and flesh her out. The fact she wasn't in 6 is kind of a crime almost, because they put fucking everybody in that. So why not Sheva? I think they need to give her some more cameos. They need to give her some more dialogue. They gotta come back, please. So fuck you dudes who went home. I mean, sure, but I don't know, if she just, like, if she was in another game being the same character, she'd end up like here. But I can't in good conscience put her above Chris, because it's just not, she hasn't done enough. Chris has done a lot. Sheva's done, she's done 1. Okay, we need more. All right. Evelyn. Sheva needs more TS shots. Got it. Yeah, she does. Evelyn. So, I mean, Evelyn was the grandmother, right? She was this ominous presence throughout Resident Evil 7. But she's just a little girl. I mean, really, like I mean, yeah, they try to convince you like with the books and stuff like that. We're like, oh, she's she's a bioweapon, and we chose her to be 13 so that she could disguise herself easier. Blah blah blah. She's a little girl. She acts like a little girl. Her motivations are not really all that sinister. It's just like, I want a mommy and daddy, right? So I don't, from a villain standpoint, she can never go above Wesker, in my mind, because she just isn't, her presence isn't like, it's just not enough. Like, kids, F tier. I wouldn't put her F tier because she's an old lady. She's an old lady, Vance. Keep that in mind. While she's representing as a little girl, she's actually an evil old grandmother. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't put her, but that's basically where her stopper is. I think she goes right below Wesker. I think she was a good villain. I think she was a better villain than a lot of the other villains that they've introduced. But she's not really sympathetic, which I think they could have played on more. She's just sinister the whole time. I mean, she basically said, like, at the end when you inject it into her, she's like, why does everybody hate me? Like, that's kind of sad, but she's just not sympathetic enough. I don't sympathize with her plight, right? I didn't sympathize with Wesker's plight either, for that matter. But I don't sympathize with Evelyn's plight of wanting a family because she's doing it in such a mean, sinister way. And they could have written that differently. They really could have. All right. Zoe. We also don't have Ethan. Is this Ethan? This might be Ethan. That might be Ethan. We'll say that's Ethan. We never see Ethan's face. We'll say this is Ethan. We'll save Ethan for last. Zoe. Yeah, it's Ethan. Okay. Zoe is... She is a really interesting character. She doesn't really have much impact in the game. I don't really find her that compelling. She's got kind of funny things, but like she doesn't really warn Ethan of anything. And there's a lot of jokes about that. Like, you could have told me, blah, 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 right? She just kind of comes out of nowhere. And then, I mean, you have the opportunity to save her, but they don't give you a compelling enough reason to inject Zoe. They mostly play it on this idea that you'd be mad at Mia rather than unsympathetic to Mia's plight, rather than being sympathetic and wanting to help Zoe. And that's not great. I'm actually going to put her in C tier. She's still better than Ada, but only slightly. Certainly no love interest there, although I think there's a little bit of tension that they try to represent. Also, Joe Baker isn't on here. Joe Baker is top S tier for the record. So no Joe, but he would be above Nemesis because Joe Baker was fucking amazing. He's a great character. They're never going to use him again. And I could watch a whole game of Joe Baker just walking through punching zombies and punching mold dudes. with his Cajun swamp middle of nowhere attitude. Fuck yeah. All right, but anyway, so that's where Joe would be if I were going to put Joe somewhere. But yeah, so Zoe, yeah, she just wasn't, they didn't flesh her out enough. Jack, on the other hand, Jack is a sinister presence throughout the entirety of Resident Evil 7. Harder to choose between Zoe and Mia if you knew Mia's relationship, your and Mia's relationship status. If you didn't know, you mean? Because I mean, I think the implication with Mia and Zoe, I mean, she's still your wife, even though she was gone. Are we banging Mia collectively? Jack Baker he's a really good villain. He provides a sinister presence through the first half of the game. He's strong. He keeps coming back. He has really good dialogue. He's really good. Like, all the encounters with them are genuinely terrifying. He doesn't die. He shoots himself in the fucking head just to be like, you're about to see something amazing. Boom! Like, holy fucking that was crazy. Like, out of all the things that happened, like introducing like the regenerative capabilities and stuff like that, that was fucking crazy. Like, he went from 0 to, oh my god, what just happened? I didn't realize I was in full screen. We're full screen now. Crazy selling in a might short, don't you think? He was a great villain. And he had, you know what? No, fucking Jack's going to double S because he had a redemption arc at the end. Like, you learn that he didn't want to do any of that stuff, that he was being forced. And then, you know, just save my family. He was a good family man by the end of it. A+. Really well written. I was really sympathetic to Jack at the end. You could feel his struggle, right? Exactly. A+. He is just really well written. Out of all the characters of Resident Evil, I think Resident Evil 7, I think he was the most well written. And especially having that sort of redemption thing at the end where he was still, you know, in the mold and he talked to Ethan for a minute and felt bad. I mean, it was very clear, like, he felt bad for what he did. So that was, yeah, just my favorite, probably my favorite villain. Functionally, I wouldn't put him on the top of the tier, but he was really good. He represented a really good redemption for Resident Evil as well, being him and dealing with him at the start of the game. Lucas is another good character. I'm going to put him at the bottom of A tier. Lucas provided a really neat, sinister presence in the form of smarts. He was a smart guy, and so he built these traps and did all these trap things. And really, if you ignore the DLC, which I'll do for the main game, right? Obviously, they always kind of planned on killing him. But if we ignore the DLC, if we assume the DLC never happened, and we just play on the assumption that Lucas was still out there when Ethan left, right? Like, we never actually faced down and tried to kill Lucas until Chris did in the DLC. But so Lucas is just like this ominous presence that is clearly sinister, clearly evil, you know, really crazy seeming, part of this family, but largely, you know, he's just like, he's out there. He's a great secondary villain. You know, he abducts the girls and I think he does a really good job. I really liked Lucas. Not as much as Jack by any stretch of the imagination. I think there was still a lot of he was just crazy. It felt like he was crazy for the sake of being crazy, which I don't think was good. I think, you know, he's a bit of a sociopath and had those tendencies. But they weren't really, like, I don't know, like, it's just like, it's a very generic for a horror character. He's just crazy. That's just what he did, right? Yeah, okay, we get it. He's just crazy. Okay, Marguerite goes below Zoe. While she really didn't have much, he enjoyed his immortality, yes. Marguerite didn't get a whole lot in Resident Evil 7, I don't feel. It's not that she was a fairly badly designed. We just didn't get a lot of her motivations. I mean, if we take, you know, if we're assuming that Marguerite did, you know, I mean, did like the kids' room for Evelyn, among other things, like that's kind of an interesting thing where she clearly cared. But by the time we saw her and by the time we were dealing with her, she's just really sinister. And it wasn't really all that appealing. And then she doesn't really, like, there's really nothing after that, right? You kill her, she dies. She was evil. She's just evil and bugs. She felt like an excuse for a flamethrower. Exactly. So, meh. Mia. I rate Mia not too bad. Not S tier character, but I think she falls higher than Lucas and higher than Sherry, higher than Claire. Higher than Claire? Yeah. Higher than Helena, but I think we'll leave Sheva above her. So the thing with Mia, So like she was possessed, right? She cut off Ethan's hand, which was a fucking crazy opening. But then it turns out she was kind of a badass. She wields a machine gun. She shoots people. She wants to resist, right? She just can't. We know why. We figure out why. And it's just like we kind of understand her motivations and we kind of understand her past. We got why she was there, what happened. I think, well, now let me think there. I think lying to Ethan wasn't great, right? I mean, she was a researcher for a shady organization. I would assume that's over now. It's going to drop her a few ticks. She felt very princess in another castle. She did, but then she had her moment on the tanker. That I think was good. I also think the game flowed pretty well. I don't feel like, I mean, it was very obvious, right? Like you got main house. Okay, now you got the guest house. Okay, now you got where Lucas lives, right? I mean, it was 3 very distinct zones and you knew it was kind of going to progress that way, which isn't great. But from a character standpoint, I don't really want to hold that against her from the game design. I think she was designed well. I think her motivations were good. Then finally, Ethan's a good character. Kind of. Ethan survives a lot of shit. I would put Ethan above Mia. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Ethan really went in. He went in. He faced down the situation and came out on top and went through a whole hell and still managed to, I mean, he stuck with it, right? I think there were a lot of times he probably could have escaped, but he stuck with it. And I gotta praise him for that. So, I also liked him better than Mia. I think overall, I think Ethan felt very pure. I think if we learned a little more about him and his past, but he was like the perfect stand-in for a player. I think out of all the characters, he was the most blank slate character that managed to represent what you would be feeling in those situations. I think it was written very well in that. Too emotionally bagged, which is good. No hesitation defending himself. Right. He was the Bella Swan of Resident Evil. Yes. He was the perfect player insert. He didn't have, his motivations were very clear, right? He wanted to figure out what the fuck was going on. He wanted to understand what was going on with Mia, right? So with those 2 pieces in place, he just had a good, it was good, I think. But like I said, who's Bella Swan? Oh God. I think he just had a good the insert of that was really good. He out of any Resident Evil plus the subtle fourth wall break. What fourth wall break was that? Help me. I did not see that or perceive that. But I think he played really well on, like, he was written really well on what the player was feeling or would be feeling during Resident Evil situation. The oh shits, all the freak outs, right? Like he was there for it, and he kind of represented exactly how I was feeling most of the time. And no other Resident Evil character had that, right? Like they all had their own motivations. Ethan was kind of the first player character you play as that you could insert your own motivations into him and it wouldn't be completely out of place. Okay, Smith. So let me make sure I'm happy with this. With the hand miraculous reattached, he's like, huh, oh, that's weird. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. With the staples. Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, Spiffy. Oh, man. So all of a sudden it's playtime. It was his left hand, so I didn't worry. So yeah. So this tier list, I'm missing people, right? But this tier list would go Joe Baker. Joe Baker's number 1. Nemesis. Mr. X. Jack are my S tier characters, and then you see the rest as you follow on. But Joe Baker's definitely number one. Joe Baker's amazing. He's exactly Joe Baker. Joe Baker represents exactly what you want out of a real horror protagonist. You want just a large, lumbering, badass oaf that just overpowers all these characters that everybody else had a problem with. All these evil things that people were having issues with. Joe just comes in and punches him in the face. It's so satisfying. Yes. Chris versus Joe. Next update. It's Joe. It's Joe. It's always Joe. Joe wins. I want more Joe. I could watch a whole movie. So like, think about this, okay? Because there's already been a horror movie like this. Has anybody seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil? Tucker and Dale versus Evil? Anybody? I don't want to spoil it. Haven't seen it, heard of it. Great movie. If you haven't watched it, watched it. It's a little bloody. If you like horror movies, it's just great. Spiffy, figure it out. Jesus, he's just flipping his shit. Let me check the radar really quick. We didn't have any thunderstorms yet. No, I'm sure there are others who haven't seen it. I really recommend it. But that being said, so if we... Okay, hold on. Let me go get this ball really quick. For fuck's sake. Out of the way, sweetheart. Out of the way. Oh my god, this dog. For the record, totally RE4 on the left bottom. Yeah, I know. Yep, I know. Okay, so what was I saying? Tucker Dale versus Evil. So Tucker Dale versus Evil is... We'll get out of this now, because I think we've solidified our tier list. Here it is. Tucker versus Dale is just like they subvert the horror trope. And I feel like something we've never seen, or at least not in any movie I've heard of, is somebody subverting the horror trope of it's the people who are in trouble. I don't think we get that very often. Right? Because, that's always right. That's a horror movie. The people are in trouble. The people are the victims of the monsters. And I feel like what Joe Baker represents is that the monsters are the victims of the person in that case. He just tears them apart limb from limb with his bare fists. They ain't ready for Joe. They don't have defenses for Joe. Joe just comes in spearing alligators and twisting heads. And I think a horror movie that subverts that, it makes the monsters the victims unexpectedly would do really well in cult status and in like Netflix watches and stuff like that, because that's something that I find very appealing, is taking what is scary and just ruining it with a character that wins. And you can kind of argue like You're Next kind of did that. And if you haven't seen You're Next, that's another really good one. I'm not really a big horror movie buff. I do watch a lot of, I read a lot of spoilers when I'm bored, and I watch a lot of Dead Meat, which is the kill count on Dead Meat. And that's a really good series too. But those are some good titles. That kind of subvert things a little bit, and I think the subversion is what makes them compelling and what makes me continue to think of them years down the road. So, not saying that other horror movies aren't good, and traditional horror movies, if done correctly, can be great and super scary, but I think it's the subversion that makes it fun and actually interesting to watch. Okay, those are the tier lists. Done. And we're done with Resident Evil. Finally. So I know that Resident Evil, if they're talking about a Resident Evil 4 remake, I'm wondering, I thought about taking bets on if they're gonna announce it at the PS5 conference tomorrow or Thursday. Because it's been a rumor, and that'd be the perfect like vehicle. You know what I mean? Like PS5 is gonna get Resident Evil 4 remake. Everybody wants it. You know, so that's you know, just I'm just thinking about that. That might be coming. So, yeah. So I'm really curious. I'm curious about the PS5. I mean, I'm more a PC gamer, so consoles, other than my Switch, because I can't get Nintendo games on my PC. Other thing that's cool, Persona 5 or Persona 4 Golden is coming to the PC. Kind of excited about that. Coming, I believe, in a couple of days, if I'm not mistaken. I've never played Persona 4, but I hear it's pretty good, and I like RPGs. I'm not gonna probably play that one on stream. So yeah, I mean, it's too late. I'm not going to start anything else tonight. So I'm just gonna babble a bit more, even though I've been talking. Never played a Persona game at all. If you like RPGs, they're apparently great. So, I don't know what I'm going to play next. We know what we're going to play tomorrow, right? It's raid night. We do have a sub coming, or we're going to need somebody to sub for us because MC's getting his teeth out, wisdom teeth out. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, if you like RPGs, if you like games like the traditional Final Fantasy, check it out. Let me see here. But yeah, so I don't know what he thinks. Zemcy is really convinced. Zemcy's getting his wisdom teeth out. He's really convinced that he's like, nah, like it's gonna be like a real big ordeal for him. I mean, getting your wisdom teeth out is he's young too. He's younger than me. I still need to get my wisdom teeth out. I mean, it's a thing, but it's not that much of a thing. He'll be just fine. Like he's talking about how he like wanted a specific food, because it was his last had mine out and sucked ass. Well, yeah, it's not fun, but he's like I wanted to eat this because it was the last hard food I'm gonna have for a while. And it's like, I believe, like, I mean, what's the recovery time on hard food after wisdom teeth coming out? Like, I think it's like 2 days, or no, 2 weeks, really. 2 weeks. Damn, that's in Mason City, Iowa. A few days. Yeah, this one eats soft foods for 3 to 5 days. Yeah. Exactly. And hot food. So 3 to 5 days and no straws. I'm old. I still have mine. I need mine out. They all have cavities in them because I fucking love sugar. And you know, whenever I drink soda, I just like drink it. And I like squish it around in my mouth. Just get it all over the teeth, you know. Just gotta get it all over the teeth. Just make sure they're coated. You don't have cavities, whatever should be out. Don't know where they're going. Yeah, I mean, mine are out, and they don't really bother me, but I know they have cavities, and instead of having them filled, I should just get them out. I was gonna probably schedule it before COVID, so the fact that COVID happened kind of ruined that. I'm just looking to see when you are supposed to start eating solid food. This one literally, this link literally said 2 weeks. That's a long time. I think it's really 3 to 5 days, right? yeah, like pasta and whatever. But anyway, so did have an issue with one of those because I get the dentist, so I had to go to specialist for that one. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna have to do. I don't think he's just gonna be able to pull them out, but I gotta get a new dentist anyway. I got one out because it was infected. That was actually while I was working at that job, Samurai. I don't know if you remember that I got it out when I was there, but I had two significant events happen there. I got my tooth out and I fucked up my knee. Those are the two big things that happened in that job. But yeah, I got my tooth out. I just remember it was like I literally did it. I think an evening after work they took it out. You remember the knee? Of course you remember the knee. But they took it out like an evening after work, and then I came to work the next day. Still joke about that from time to time. Samurai, did you learn how to mop or anyway, yeah. I don't blame you, for the record. I don't. What are you buying? Yeah. But so I got that. Yes, I got that out. At least I didn't think I trashed my knee. Yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, so that's just the bulk of that. So I just got to find a new dentist around me because I'm not going to be going back to where I was, where my dentist is. There's no reason for me to drive there. So yeah, so tomorrow I'm gonna do Satisfactory and raid. So we're gonna be raiding. But yeah, he's just like talking about how he's having this solid food, and it's like, dude, like you're gonna be able to eat soon. Can I recommend you one? You're looking for? No, I'm not. I'm looking for one down here. I need to find one down here. I have one right across from where I worked. Was where I was going previously. So, and that might be the one you'd recommend to me. But he's a good guy. If you need a new dentist, he did a good job. But anyway, beyond that, so I got to find a new dentist down here and have him take it out. So yeah, so Zemsty's like talking about how he's eating food. And I'm like, bud, like you're gonna be able to eat food in no time. Like don't worry about it so much. It's like, this is the last hard meal I'm gonna have for a couple of days. It's like you're gonna eat Jello and mashed potatoes, man. Oh, by our old elementary school. Gotcha. This one's further down the road. The one I'm thinking of. It's right behind where the good Chinese food is. Wait, he needs hard meat? No, I'm talking about hard. Did I say hard meat? Hard food. Jesus Christ. Hard food. He's having blackened chicken pasta with mushrooms, oven roasted garlic on rolls. It looks delicious. Don't get me wrong. I find it a little dramatic that he's like, I want to eat my last hard food meal. But yeah, so we're gonna play Satisfactory, and then Friday. So that and raid. Raid's gonna be a little funky because he doesn't want to raid tomorrow, which I don't really blame him. He'd probably be loopy on some drugs. But so, and then that'll be tomorrow will be and Thursday will be the same old. Friday I'll be hitting a Space Hollow, and then Saturday I have no idea. Obviously we're not starting. Nobody's redeemed Darkest Dungeon yet, so we're not starting that. So I have a world of options, and I'm gonna have to pick one. I'm considering playing more Satisfactory, just like doing fuller streams dedicated to it and spending a little more time in it. But I kind of like how I'm doing it now, so I'm a little hesitant to do that. We might start something else. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of different games that I'd like to play or try out. So could definitely redeem RimWorld by then. You don't want to redeem RimWorld. Save it up. You wanted me to play a specific game. I ain't gonna touch it unless you tell me to. I considered Metro. Maybe I'll consider Metro. Although I kind of want to get out of like horror and creepiness for the moment. I've had enough for right now. For sure. So maybe I'll save that. I don't know. I'll look. I'll keep looking. I said I said I was gonna be looking for the last few days. I could also do some Red Dead. I've also considered that. I just don't know how. I don't know how. I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to talk during that. There's also Journey. There's also I consider playing Warhammer a little bit. Might do a couple of games. I don't know. I'm gonna make that decision. I'm gonna actually think about it. Especially because I'm actually going to be physically at work tomorrow. So I'm going to be working, but I also will have time to just think about other things and not actually do other things like I can do at home. Look through that back catalog. Yeah, it's massive. But I'll actually have time to maybe plan some stuff out. So anyway, yeah, so I think that's it. I'm going to hop off. Go to bed here. I needed to check the weather right before that, but I'll do that as I'm saying bye. But thanks for hanging with me, guys. You know, I really appreciate it. I had fun. I'm glad I finished Resident Evil 7. I'm glad you guys were here. I'm glad you guys sat with me for the tier list. That was fun. I had a good time. So, all right. Oh man, it might thunderstorm. I really don't want it to thunderstorm because I'd like to sleep the whole night. Let me see what it's predicting here. So it says thunderstorms at 10, which means I need to get up and take the dogs out. Sorry. And then, yeah, one versus one Battletech match. Well, I'm going to play more Battletech than that. So we should talk about that once you redeem it. Because maybe we want to do like, until I beat you. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Figure it out, or you know, best 2 out of 3 or something, you know, I don't know, just some excuse for me to play it longer, because a 1 versus 1 match, like that's a lot of points. That's a lot of watching me for one thing. I mean, it's not like playing games with me is not some luxury, you know what I mean? So we'll figure it out. But anyway, all right, have a good night, Vans. Have a good night, Samurai. Have a good night, Meow. Have a good night, Calidor. Have a good night, anybody else that's out there watching, lurk, or whatever. I appreciate you. Thanks for sticking with me, Resident Evil. Time to do fun stuff next time. Okay, bye.